It is never easy being a commentator when you have to address issues that other people are afraid to address, or even hear the conclusion of the matter, as it were. But it is what it is. Someone has to say some of the awful and or painful things sometimes to hopefully spark uh, a call to action so that we can all live a more wholesome, a better life, more productive life. And I'm just one of those individuals. I never imagined that I was going to ever be in this position to disseminate the type of information as it relates to the way in which our country, so-called country, operates and how it um, misdistributes wealth to its various classes of people and so forth. I'm sort of getting off on another tangent and not the original subject matter, and I apologize, but I was just feeling that. Uh, I'm just taken to live in perhaps one of the greatest countries on the planet. Not the greatest, but one of the greatest countries on this planet. And to have us being told all or most of our lives that, we are cared about, we are loved, and we are cherished, and we are valued by our government when that could be no further from the truth. So I'm going to stop right there on this and move to the subject at hand. Um, as it relates to the most uh, significant and most talked about subject in today's world and news, the coronavirus and COVID-19, also called, I believe that we have not been told all of the truth. I believe that there has not been full disclosure, and to some degree, I believe for legitimate reasons in terms of the disclosure. And what I mean specifically is this: we've been given a window of time, 2 weeks would have been about the middle of April. We were going to see ourselves clear, according to Donald Trump, to possibly get back to things as they were, as usual, or as normal as possible. But it was extended, the date or deadline was extended to the end of the month, the 1st of May. I personally believe, I'm not a fly on the wall. I haven't been in a board meeting. I haven't been somewhere behind closed doors listening to anyone. But I believe, just by virtue of my observation, my intuition, that the stimulus payments are not going to be on time, as we were told, 2 to 3 weeks. I also believe that there's going to be a significant amount of the people who have suffered economically or financially, both those who are employees and those who are small business owners who have lost their jobs or whose jobs and or business are still struggling. I don't believe that they are going to receive monies in a timely fashion to help bail them out, us out, myself included, of the financial situation that we are finding ourselves in. That's not going to happen. And that's not me being pessimistic. I'm always optimistic. But when I look at the source, when I look at Donald Trump and all of the people that are the so-called professionals and so forth, I just simply don't believe it. Now, take this for what it's worth. Let's look at May 1st, and you come up with your own conclusion as to whether or not what I said has any semblance of truth. So we have about 20 more days, and we shall all see. I don't believe that the schools are going to open back up this year across the U.S. I don't believe that most people will get back to work across the U.S. I believe that most working poor people will exhaust or will have exhausted their life savings in an effort to stay afloat. Most working class people, working poor people, will have used up their 401k and any other savings type of vehicles, to include selling off property and things of value just in order to stay afloat. I believe that this is the reality that we're in, and this is the reality that most of us are going to be faced with. And with that said, we're going to be in a position where things are going to be so dire, so serious, that the government is going to come up, with our president being the head, with so many uh, reasons and excuses for why things didn't work out the way that they should have. You know, it's one thing to be in power. I'm talking about all of the heads of state, all of the politicians who are wealthy for the most part, to be in power, or for them to be in power to tell the working poor, working class, the middle class, that everything is going to be all right when their financial pockets are not being affected. It's easy for them to say that. It's easy for them to issue orders and mandates and tell people not to travel and stay in your home or stay quarantined when they're not the ones who's losing a paycheck or who has lost their livelihood or their jobs. It's easy for them to say that. How do you tell someone who has been working on a job for several months or several years, who depend on that income to provide for themselves and their families? How do you just tell them to stop working, to not go there, all for the sake of a so-called virus or pandemic? Now, some of this may appear to be a little jarbled, but it's not. If you have to go back and watch this again and listen to everything that I'm saying to you, line upon line, precept upon precept, and put it all together, if I'm not being explicit enough for you, please do so. So, I wanted to give you a little information from my research. I have my notes, a few notes here, and I want to compare the coronavirus, so-called, uh, with other diseases and or conditions in terms of the mortality of people during certain points in American history or world history. It's not a lot, it's just a little, just something for you to think about. Um, First of all, as it relates to a pandemic, a pandemic is fundamentally an epidemic that is spread throughout the world, called a pandemic. In other words, it is a disease or a virus in this particular instance that has proliferated, if you will, across the globe in a significant manner, touching many human beings' lives and killing many. So that's the operative word, many. How much is many? How much is enough to say that it warrants the title pandemic? Let's look at 1918, flu pandemic. In the year 1918, flu pandemic across the world, 50 million people approximately had died. 50 million. And that was termed a pandemic. Now, we are in a little less than 2 months. How many people have died of the coronavirus or the COVID 19? If you were to do the math and break it down. Now, 50 million died of the flu in 1918. That was a pandemic. Okay? Now, this last flu season, the CDC, or Center of Disease Control, stated that 80,000 people died in last season's flu season. 80,000. Now, contrast that with how many people have died of the COVID 19 to date. Between 4 and 6,000 people have died of COVID 19 as I'm speaking to you. Um, between 4 and 6,000. And we want to call this a pandemic. It's not. It's not a pandemic at all. The numbers don't add up in order to warrant that it be a pandemic. Compared to the flu of 1918 and compared to last season's flu season, if you will. So now, just another interesting point. Every single year, over 600,000 people die of cancer in America. Was the economy shut down every year when all of these people were dying of cancer and in the previous flu season? Did that warrant, or did any of these events warrant that the economy be shut down? Especially during the flu season of 1918 and the flu season of last year and the year before. Was the economy shut down? Were children taken out of school and made to stay home? Were the American people ordered to engage in social distancing for a flu-like symptom, which they call conveniently COVID-19 or coronavirus? I'm seeing some very interesting things. I'm seeing people wearing masks. People are wearing masks, in my estimation, for one of a couple reasons. I do comprehend, I understand that there are people who have pre-existing conditions. And according to medical evaluation of the cases that have occurred and where people have died, many of the people, and the majority of the people that have died from the so-called coronavirus, were people who were up in age and who already had pre-existing medical conditions or issues. Mostly, the majority of people that are healthy don't die from the coronavirus, and for that matter, any other virus, any other flu-like symptom, if you're healthy. Now, had we not ever called it the coronavirus or COVID-19, and the symptoms were the same and or similar, the protocol would have still been the same. The results still would have been the same, from my estimation. And that's simply this. If you're healthy, you will make it through okay. And if your immune system is compromised, you are susceptible or more susceptible to not only catch or contract the so-called coronavirus, but any virus, cold, flu, whatever, if your immune system is weakened already. Why is this complicated? Why is this so hard to understand? Ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself the question. There are many elements, many aspects of the human existence, the human body, and its physiology. Did you not know that the immune system is one of those elements of the human body? Why do we have an immune system? Why do we have white blood cells? Why do we have a lymphatic system? Why do we have an immune system, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to ask you again. Be truthful. If you don't know the answer, that's no reason for you to sit there and pout and frown at me for telling you that you need to study. That's no reason for you to be ignorant. And I'm not talking down to you, and I'm not putting you down. I'm just simply saying ignorant from the standpoint which simply means that you are not aware. You are not educated in a particular subject matter. I didn't say that you had to have a doctorate's degree. I didn't say that you had to be a professor of science on any level. But you have to fundamentally have some sense, some common sense, some intellect to be able to use critical thinking. Is that unfair? But some of us, we will accept anything that comes down the pike that we see on world news, local news, and never question anything. We will hear someone say, well, the sky is falling, and we believe it just because they said it. We just want to trust that no one is going to tell us the wrong thing or give us bad information. Why in the heck do you have a brain of your own if it's not for thinking and processing information, not just simply responding to something without any evidence? Okay, I began to say people wear masks for a couple of reasons. Those who have pre-existing conditions because of their lack of education on this particular subject, flu-like symptoms through the coronavirus and so forth. I don't blame you for wanting to live. I don't blame you for wanting to err on the side of safety. That should be a very commonsensical thing. However, I do take issue with you, and not anyone personally, but I'm just saying in general. I take issue with the fact that we are not studying anything. We're just accepting whatever is being expressed to us as being the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So, continue to wear your mask. Those of you who have a pre-existing condition, continue by all means to wear your mask. But while you have that mask on, when you go into your secret closet, into your room, into your home, sit down and do some research. And ask yourself, after you've done some thorough research, what's this all about? Did I really have to have that mask on in the first place? Now, it is said, and it's been said, that you wear a mask to protect your nose and your mouth. But what about your eyes? You have mucous membranes in your mouth. You have mucous membranes in your nose. And you have mucous membranes in your eyes. Can you protect your eyes as well? We are exposed to bacteria, viruses, and germs 24/7. As long as humanity has been on this planet, there's always been viruses. There has always been bacteria, good and bad. There has always been germs. There's always been fungus. Why are we up in arms now over processes that are absolutely normal? If our body's physiology is normal from us taking care of it properly as we should, then we shouldn't have to worry about any sort of virus because we live in this environment called nature. All of these edifices, these office buildings, these structures, these homes, these buildings, these jobs, these towers, these factories, mankind built those things, but before they existed, we lived outside. So if we lived outside, what do we do about viruses then? And bacteria, and fungus, and germs? We did what nature said. Our body took care of it because we have a immune system. But when that immune system has been overwhelmed with man-made materials, chemicals, and toxins through production, through industry, that immune system becomes compromised. And when it's compromised, it becomes weakened. And when it's weakened, it is susceptible to anything that's airborne or otherwise. Now, there are some folks that don't like what I just said. Well, you just better get over it. Just because you don't like what I said doesn't mean that what I said is not true. I did not pull this out of the ethers, out of the air. I'm just trying to get you to think. And another thing that I believe that is so bizarre is that we want to use people who are in high places, who are celebrities, to try to get the public, to try to get the people to follow all of these dictates by government, so to speak. So you see people like Ricky Smiley. You see uh, other celebrities saying, well, wear your mask and uh, conform to social distancing and all of these things. If that's what you believe and if that's what you feel, I'm not trying to discourage you from doing it because that's your measure of faith. Your measure of faith is based on your experience and it's based on your own personal knowledge. But if you are following the leader just because the leader told you that, whoever the leader may be, okay, we're going to encourage people and tell people to make sure that they follow social distancing based on just a simple statement. Do we have any concrete evidence to prove anything that they've said? Okay. To date, the information that I have right now that I'm about to mention to you about the worldwide corona cases, there has been 1,603,719 cases of corona as I'm speaking right now. It may have gone up, but as I'm speaking right now. Of those cases, there has been 356,655 people that have recovered. I wonder why. Don't you wonder why that they recovered? Usually within 48 hours, it has been said. Now, of the fatalities, those that have died, in other words, it has been 95,722 people who have died in the world. 95,722 people have died in the world. Now, that is almost 100,000, almost 1/10 of a million. But don't forget the numbers that I pointed out to you earlier when I started this video. 95,000 people have died within about 60 days. Ladies and gentlemen, how many people are on planet Earth? About 7.5 billion people on the Earth. Can you do the math? 95,000 deaths is bad enough that people have to lose their lives to a disease or a virus or what have you. Those unnatural things, even man-made things. It's unfortunate, and it is a sad situation. And I'm sympathetic and empathetic to all of those families that had to undergo losing loved ones and friends and family and so forth. But the math just does not add up at all when you have 7.5 billion people on the planet. This is not a pandemic. This is what I believe someone else labeled as a pandemic. Someone planned this. I believe that they want our economy to crash. I believe that they're using the coronavirus as a means and a method to get people to take a vaccination that's going to have all sorts of chemicals contained therein that is harmful to all of the recipients of those vaccinations, men, women, and children. I believe that this is the precursor to world dominance, world control, population control, police state, military state, and the relinquishing of a great deal of people on the planet. The distinction of many of the people or the population on the planet. That is what I believe. How many of you are willing to challenge what's in the vaccinations? How many of you are going to take the vaccinations or allow them to administer those vaccinations, if and when it comes down to it, to your children, your grandchildren, not knowing what's being injected in them, all for the sake of protecting them from this unseen enemy? How many are you going to do this particular thing? You better think. You really had better think. How many of you believe that there could potentially be some artificial intelligence involved in this? Namely, a chip or a chipping system to control the population, and that this vaccination issue is part of that procedure. I'm going to leave it right there and give you some time to think. Now, if this video is removed from YouTube, you know why. If there's a whole lot of choppiness and a whole lot of difficulty in you watching this, you know why. My subscribership has dropped substantially. It's almost at a standstill, and it's been that way for several months. It has nothing to do with algorithms that are occurring sort of naturally. It has everything to do with censorship because of the subject matter that I'm addressing. I'm sorry. It is what it is. That is why I did a previous video saying, if you want to stay with me and stay in contact with me, send me your email, or send me by way of email that I left in my last video, your information, so that we can continue on educating you because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And if you are not proactive in your own life and that of your families, you are going to be consumed by this so-called invisible enemy. And there's more to come. Let me know what you think, what your actual feelings are in the comment section below. Be nice, be polite, love one another. You've never heard me espouse anything less than that. Take care of one another. For those of you whose faith is such where you believe that you have to have a mask on just to be safe, because maybe you're not that educated or have not been educated or have educated yourself, by all means, please wear the mask. But for those of you that know what's going on for real, continue to educate your family and your friends, those people that are close to you, and those people who are willing to listen as to what's really going on. I love you always, and Yahweh loves you. This is Brother Teacher. Have a good evening and or day, depending on where you are. So long.